then you can achieve it. And our next speaker is here to tell us something about that. He's a British adventurer, television personality, and former UK Special Forces soldier, Royal Marines Commando, and Royal Engineer in the British Army. He is best known as the former chief instructor on the Channel 4 television series SAS Who Dares Wins. He also appeared as the captain in the adventure reality show Mutiny and the survival show Escape. Now, if that wasn't enough, in 2018, he climbed Mount Everest for the TV show Extreme Everest with Ant Middleton. And the point to this is he proves that anything is possible. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ant Middleton.
Do not worry, I'm not here to thrash the living daylights out of you. A lot of you are probably thinking, what the hell is Ant Middleton doing here at the Reform Conference? Well, what do I know about politics? I know enough about modern day politics to realize that it's not working here in the UK. Hence, the solution is in the title, reform. Political reform is definitely needed. And it doesn't take the brains of Elon Musk to realize that. What do I know? Now, I do know about national security. I do know about safety. I do know about personal safety. I do know about community. I do know about teamwork. I do know about coming together. I do know about identity. Identity being key here. Identity gives us purpose, it gives us drive, it gives us ambition. It gives us a one-dimensional goal to work towards. Identity being key. I do know about trust, trusting each other to get something done. And I do know about unity, a coming together of a unit, of a team, of a country to make sure that we are secure and safe. That I do know about. I'm not here to speak about politics. I'll leave that to the politicians. But listen, what I do know is national security, and that's what we're going to touch on very first and foremost. Now, when I spoke to Nigel and the wider team a couple of years ago, for those that don't know, I do a TV show called SAS Who Dares Wins, where I bring in broken people and I strip them down so they can identify who they are, so they have an identity, and then I build them back up to go out into the world and to achieve. And I got asked a question by Nigel and his wider team saying, could you do that with a broken country? How do you do that? And we went through how I broke people down. I said it's quite simple. Now, what I do with individuals, I bring them into a camp. I close those gates. Let's call it the border. I close the gates and I make sure that no one comes in unless they benefit the environment. Okay? Super important. If they benefit the environment, they can come in. 2, if they benefit the individuals in my camp, i.e. the countrymen and women. If they benefit them, you can come in. Also, if they adhere to the rules and regulations of my camp. And when I started to break it down, I was like, wow, actually, if we go back to the bare basics, if we strip it all back down, there's super similarities here. It's not too dissimilar. Yes, it's a lot more complicated, but it's not too dissimilar. Now, the moment those gates are closed, hopefully that individual feels safe. Super important, because safety then trickles into trust. If you feel safe around someone, you can start to trust someone. If you feel safe in a community, you can start to trust that community. If you feel safe in a country, you can start to trust that country. So I looked at the bigger picture, which is this country that I've fought for, that I've had the privilege operating at the very highest level. Thank you. With multiple agencies, whether that's intelligence agencies, different special forces, I have seen a topographical view of how the country works. And the key thing is the safety behind it. So I know how it works. I know what needs to be done. And when I look at the borders, I'm almost disgusted that our Royal Navy, the best Navy in the world, no shadow of a doubt, we have the best Navy in the world, are being put on the back burner, not allowed to do their jobs. Not being allowed to do their jobs. Double standards, call it two-tier, whatever you want to call it, double standards. They're not allowed to do their job. Wow. The best Navy in the world aren't allowed to do their job, i.e. protect our waters. So, of course, I haven't got a secure camp. We haven't got a secure camp because we don't know who's coming in. They're certainly not benefiting the environment. They're certainly not adhering to the rules and regulations. And they're certainly not benefiting us as a nation. Now, interpret that as you will, okay? Let's say that's the border, okay? I don't want to get in too much trouble and be cancelled again. So let's just say that that's the border. My little camp is the border. Now, what do I do once I've secured my camp? They feel safe. I make sure that people are safe, and I start stripping them down, okay? Broken people come to me, I strip them down, and I make them realize what they're capable of. I make them identify their true selves, who they really are. I give them an identity. Whew. What's British identity? British culture. What's British culture? British history. Okay? So why is that being eradicated? Why is that being trampled all over? Why aren't we allowed to be the umbrella culture of this country? And it's very, very simple. If I hear someone say once more, what's British culture, scones and tea, I'm going to throttle them. No, I'm not going to kill anyone, don't worry. But British culture is British history. British history is born, this country is born on the values of Christianity. Those values have worked for years, centuries and centuries to get us where we are today. The moment we lose our identity, guess what we lose? Our purpose, our focus, our direction. What happens when we don't have an identity? We get confused. Number one, when I left the military, lost my identity, I got confused. When you have a nation of confused people, guess what happens after? Frustration. You get frustrated. Like the individual, very much like the individual. What happens after frustration? Anger. Anger, violence. Violence. What's happening on our streets right now? Violence. We are at a very, very important and crucial stage before it teeters into civil unrest, which we want to avoid at all costs. But it's coming. We are on that edge where violence has hit the streets. We've all seen it. I don't need to mention what it is. We've all seen it. And it might not happen in your community, but it's happening majority. You go outside of London, it's happening outside, even on the borders, even in London itself. You look at the knife crime. I know Anne mentioned it before. Knife crime, gun crime. Wow. Talk about that second layer of security, which is the community, non-existent. Do you know why? Because we've got a non-existent security on the borders. So what's it doing? It's filtering in right into the center of our communities. Like I said, the next step is going to be a lot worse unless we get a grip of it right now. We need to revert back to the basics. Let's strip everything down, back to the basics. Identity. We need the umbrella identity of British culture. British culture needs to be at the forefront of everything. By all means, come in, practice your culture. We are accepting, by all means, but we need an umbrella culture. We need that identity because then we have our rules and regulations, which everyone needs to adhere to. okay? That way, it stops double standards. And what does double standards create? Again, this is military tactics 101. What does that create? It creates division. Double standards creates division, okay? That is apparent all over the UK. We are so divided, therefore so controlled. Divided to a point where that circle before used to cross over, and we used to be in that realm of common sense, of making sure that our military is secure, making sure that our police force is up to scratch, up to standard. My 7-year-old son could pass the entrance test for the police force. I could do it backwards, I promise you. I promise you. And having these people in these high locations, in this hierarchical structure that I know, they're telling me firsthand. I'm not making this stuff up. They're telling me firsthand. And therefore, that's what we need to secure, the 3 rings of security. The country, our community, then personal security, personal safety. Personal safety is paramount. And when that happens, again, taking that from an individual to a country, when that happens, trust starts to kick in. You start to trust people, you start to trust the people around you, you start to trust the community, you start to trust the country. And that's what we need to reestablish. We need to reestablish trust and unity within this country. And it's easily done. People say it's a lot more complicated than that. No, it's not. They like to tell you that it is, because they're using military tactics of distraction. They distract you with all the irrelevant stuff, with all the virtual signaling, taking it away from the bigger problems, which we don't want to tackle, because they are complicated. The borders is a complicated thing, but they don't want to tackle it because it's so complicated. So what do? They distract you. They control you through division. That distraction method is absolutely evident. And then when they distract you, they can control you. And when they can control you, guess what? We fall into chaos. And that's exactly what's happening now. We haven't got time. We haven't got time for this to happen. We need those 3 rings of security. Our military needs to be priority. Our military was once the best military in the world, and I still believe they're there right now. I do. Our police force, exactly the same. The standards need to be risen again. The standards have dropped so badly that, of course, you've got double standards. And then again, double standards creates division. Of course, you've got two minds going either way. We need to fortify our police force, and we need to bring the standards back up. And for me, the most important thing for unity and for everyone to be singing off the same song sheet is our culture. The culture of our beloved country. The history that we fought for to be here today. Phenomenal, I know it very well. I know it very well. Yes, we are accepting. Yes, we will bring everyone under that umbrella. Adhere to our rules and regulations, respect our culture, you can come in and play. And I'm going to be here along with Nigel, not necessarily on a political standpoint, but on a structural standpoint. I know what we need to establish. And again, reverting back to the basics. What are the foundations of our country? What's holding this country up? Because the pillars, identity, that's crumbling. Safety, that's more or less gone. Unity, that's the whole platform's over now. Community, safety, those pillars are just non-existent. So the right political party, i.e. Nigel and his team and Reform, need your help to make sure that the next political party that we do is Reform. The next party that gets in is Reform. We have 4 years to make that happen. Two years to Scotland. Listen, I love the jocks. Don't worry about that. I love the jocks. And again, this is for another talk and another another brief, but coming together, I talk about unity. Again, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. What's happening there? Let's come together. That is what we're here for. Look at the flag. Now, before I leave you, do not be put off with the distraction methods. Do not be fooled. Do not let them divide us, okay? Because the moment we're divided, well, guess what? Military saying we're conquered. And we're very, very close to allowing that to happen, okay? What I want to do over the next 4 years is help Nigel and his team get them ready for that next political push, which is hopefully... Yes, there you go. I will sort the military out myself. Don't worry about that. But on a serious note and leaving you, we're in critical times right now. And I dip in and out. I travel so much. And when I look back in, I am extremely concerned for the beloved country that I fought so hard for. That World War I, World War II gave us our freedom, and we continue to do so. We must maintain the integrity of this country. And I will be here, dipping in and out during these next few years with Nigel and the team, and hopefully become a more of a constant when we finally get into power. Up the reform. Thank you so much. Remember, identity first. Identity first. Thank you.